We cannot incarcerate our way out of violence. The addiction on jails and incarceration in this country, we have moved past that. It is racist, it is immoral, it is unholy, and it is not the way to drive violence down.
This guy is making things about race again? That's Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. Last week in Chicago, Lawrence Reed, an 8-time felon with 72 prior arrests, doused Bethany Magee with gasoline on a train. Then, he lit her on fire. She's in critical condition with burns over half her body. In response, Trump threatened to send in the National Guard. And that clip is how Johnson responded. And you know what? Johnson has a point. The war on drugs did lock up millions of nonviolent offenders, disproportionately black, and destroyed communities. And yes, we have the largest prison population in the world. But that's not because we lock up too many violent criminals. It's because we locked up too many nonviolent ones. But you know what else is immoral and unholy? An 8-time convict who just assaulted his social worker riding trains with law-abiding citizens. A judge releasing that convict because, quote, I can't keep everybody in jail. There's a pattern across our cities. The man who murdered Iryna Zarutska was arrested 14 times. Jordan Neely was arrested 42 times, thrice for assaulting women on the subway. These people are dangerous to themselves and the public. Lax policies and lenient judges leave them on the streets. And the excuse is always the same. We need to avoid racism. We need to be empathetic because they're mentally ill. That's true. And here's what else is true. We need to incarcerate violent criminals, regardless of color. We need to treat mental health after ensuring physical safety. We should give them rehab while they're in prison. But instead of exploring solutions, politicians invert priorities. They prioritize the psychological over the logical, race over reality, empathy over enforcement. And then, when things go wrong, politicians like Brandon Johnson, who had a 6.6% approval rating in February, redirect attention from competence to color. They cite racial disparities in how we treat nonviolent offenders and block clarity about how we should treat violent offenders. They point to issues in subjective cases, like weed possession, to avoid accountability for objective cases, like a woman on fire. They rely on racial deflection to win elections. But this isn't protecting black people. It's protecting them from accountability from black people. But more than half of homicide victims are black. So the people who suffer the most from violent crime are black. That's why only 38% of black people in Chicago approve of Mayor Johnson. That's why Kalshi lists Chicago as the most likely city for Trump to send the National Guard. Enough. Violent offenders should go to prison. If a disproportionate number of them are black, that's an unfortunate matter of facts. And yeah, we should acknowledge how oppression contributed to that. But compassion is a complement to consequences, not a replacement. Violent criminals with multiple felonies should be in prison, not the public. And that's the only thing about this that should be black and white. Race keeps getting used to shut down discussion. That's why I cover conversations others won't on my Substack. Link below.